Good morning, everyone. So thank you for those who are joining us in our today's training. We are doing a resumption of yesterday's training. We did training yesterday on IPC products and PTZ. Today we are going to do we're going to resume on training with thermal camera. Then later we'll introduce with the recorders. Thank you for those of us who are joining us, and for the consistent guys that are joining us. Like, thank you. So I hope by the end of everything, we have the certification. We are trying to rush on the theory. That's why we're covering more online sessions. So as much we need to cover much ground on the theory part. Then by the time we are done, we have a few sessions on the practical. Then we do certifications for those who will be interested in partaking the exam and certification course. Yeah. So I'll begin by introducing myself. My name is Shelton Kipkwej. I'm from the tech support at Dawa Technology Kenya Limited. So for the office at Kenya, we're handling East Africa, including Ethiopia, Somalia, Sudan. So we are a team at the moment. We have more technicians on our side. So for those of us who joined us yesterday, I told you that we will be introducing the other guys in our next week sessions. So from next week, we're going to have more technical personnel in Dahua. So I'll introduce the guys to you. Then you get to know them. So the support for the side from Dahua will improve. So for those of us who have been working with us before. We are going to cover training on thermal cameras. For those of us who are following, we are having let me just share the screen with you. Yes, from the screens you can zoom. I think you can zoom. So we have covered the IPC products introduction. For the HDCV, there's no content. We did a PTZ introduction yesterday. So today I'm intending for us to cover thermal camera products introduction. Then we do a network recorder. So I'm planning to have the slides number 4 and 6 to be completed by today. 4, 6, maybe 7. So we'll have two sessions. Sorry. So one is beginning now. The other one will be from 11:45, so that we cover more ground. If you have any issue, you can raise your hand or you can contact me in the chat section. So that we can have a common ground of communication. So I think we will begin. Generally, thermal cameras are cameras that can do temperature measurement. So and use that information for temperature measurement to do analysis and so just give me a minute. I need to check on something. I'm trying to locate the slide so that you can use that one. So just give me a few. Okay. Yeah, I hope everything's now okay. So we are going to do a thermal camera products introduction today. So we'll handle the thermal camera are more of cameras that can do temperature monitoring, and from the analysis of temperature in objects around you, you can use that information to do. The camera can use that information to do further algorithms and AI applications. So by the end of this session, I hope we get to know about the various thermal cameras that we offer and their applications and which series of the thermal cameras are they. So also we get to know about the important specification for different series. Then we'll check other functions, interfaces, how they look like. So we'll check more of thermal cameras in this part of the training. So what is the thermal camera, the application and the product? This is what we are going to cover. So remember when you are doing products from the we have been covering the naming rule. And the naming rule is quite important in while doing the products for Dahua. So if you know well about the naming rule, you'll be able to easily suggest products to client and be able to do judgment on functionalities of a camera without struggling while in the market or while doing installations. So the performance for thermal cameras include monitoring for long distances, ability to go through obstacles like fog, the haze. So the information like a background characteristics that do not affect thermal cameras. So for temperature measurement, advantages of it is about contactless, where you don't need to have a contact to access thermal. So it's not for these cases, we are not limited to only thermal camera. We'll see other thermal products that we have as Dahua. So accuracy and also fast. In terms of fire detection, we'll cover this information later. So most of the cases that we have thermal camera is doing perimeter protection, that is for the low end side. So we have cameras that have two lenses. I think for those of us who have interacted with them, one is a bit dark lens, while the other lens is a normal lens. So the dark lens is a thermal camera lens. And if you see such cameras, most application scenario will be doing a perimeter protection. So for perimeter protection, you have thermal cameras that can do scenario for general scenario. This applies in cases where you're doing a perimeter protection at home scenarios. While doing a border and coastal securities, we have high-end thermal cameras that can perform this case, where you have the thermal camera doing monitoring and perimeter protection, both at day and night in the coastal regions and border cases. This is for the government cases and border control. So for perimeter scenarios, we have cases like this. We have in residence, you have in shopping malls, and energy and chemical plant, museum, schools, factory. So the application for the perimeter protection is quite large, depending on what your client wants. So you can have the thermal camera installed in government, deportation, prison, railway station, etc. So in this case, from the right side, you are seeing these are just some case scenarios where we have installed thermal cameras, like in Korea, Western prison. We have thermal cameras installed in that prison. We have in Germany solar parks. So where in a plant where you have a lot of solar panels in Germany, we have a perimeter protection done with the thermal cameras. So at night, you are having thermal cameras doing perimeter protection. At daytime, you are having the normal camera doing the perimeter protection. So for border perimeter monitoring, coastal monitoring, so the products for this vary. So we have high-end products that can do that. Then we have, for the homestead, we have different products. So how do you identify a thermal camera? Is just with if you see a camera with the TPC prefix, or not a prefix, DHTPC, this one is a thermal camera. Yesterday we talked about the PTZ. So you remember when I was saying the SD is a speed dome. So if it's a TPC SD, that's a PTZ a thermal camera. Yeah. So kindly mute your microphones. Okay. So if you see a TPC with the SD, that's a PTZ camera that supports thermal. So all of this, you can see them have two lenses. So one normal lens, another a thermal sensor. So we also have a TPC, PT. So for these scenarios that you are having a perimeter protection in high-end scenarios like coastal monitoring, border security, etc., you're going to use such models for the thermal camera. So considering their functionalities is quite high, and also their lenses are big. So you can see 20 to 300 millimeter size lens. So successful cases for perimeter protection include Hungary border perimeter security done with the thermal cameras for Dahua, Turkey border security, the same. In New Guinea, the same with the coastal surveillance. So you can see for these cases, we have these high-end models of the thermal camera from this point here. So depending on the project, maybe you can encounter, or maybe the clients that you can have approach you. For the cases for thermal camera and PTZ cases, we would advise you to communicate with us so that we can do product suggestion, maybe advise you on the cost and everything. So before proceeding. So for such scenarios, the way you need to use the thermal camera for high-end cases, you can contact us, then we can do support to each other on achieving the customer's needs. So for fire prevention indoors, now we are moving to a bit lower versions of thermal cameras. So like this case, TPC BF2221, this is a common model sold locally. We also have these other ones. So for a TPC SD, remember when I was saying SD is just a PTZ, speed dome. If you're talking about a BF, TPC BF, that is a thermal camera, which is a bullet. Then if you're talking about a TPC DF, that's a thermal camera, that's a dome camera. So dome thermal camera. So for the for the certification case, it's good you just, okay, you're welcome, Nashimiana. So for the certification case, just focus on maybe knowing the naming rule. That's not this TPC is a thermal camera, because we are not going to dive more into deeply the specified about which model number for the thermal camera, because this is just a project-based scenario where you require the thermal cameras. Okay, for those of us who are joining us, we are doing the first session now. We are handling thermal cameras. Then we'll have a break at we'll have a break at 11:30. Then we resume for another session at 11:45. So we'll have. The reason why you're having 2 sessions is because we need to cover more ground. We can also use thermal cameras in fire prevention cases. This applies in scenarios where you have high rates of forest fire occurring, and the application case will be in a forest or scenic area or a farmland. So you can use thermal camera to do to prevent catastrophic damages of fires, or prevent event from creating more damages in a site. So the typical ones that you use are the high-end models, which we had mentioned here earlier before. For temperature measurement, the thermal cameras also can do that. A typical application for the temperature measurement with thermal cameras include airport, railway stations, hospitals, and schools. So we don't not only have the cameras that can do temperature measurement, but also these two. So these ones are economical versions of the thermal cameras. Maybe you can check body temperature and monitoring. So basically, this tutorial today, this training today is more of just getting to be familiar with the thermal cameras and know that we have thermal cameras for various applications like border control, coastal line patrol, coastal line monitoring and perimeter protection. And knowing that just that the TPC will represent a thermal product. A very good example for thermal product application will be predictive maintenance. So what is predictive maintenance? This is a case scenario where you'd have to do some analysis of an object before an event occurs. So an example will be monitoring of transformers and a power station. So you are monitoring the devices in the power station and checking their temperatures, and then you can do alarms based on the various temperatures to avoid damages of objects and fix something before they occur. It's like an active deterrence version of thermal camera. So for the predictive maintenance, you can have maintenance at the transformer site. You can have at the substation site or the transmission side cable. From the distribution, that case we are not monitoring the thermal. We're not using the thermal cameras from that scenario. Only from the maybe transformer and the substation. So those of us also are continuing to join us. We're having our first session for the training. We are having training on thermal cameras or thermal products that we have. So it's a DHSS certification, VSS certification. So it's more of getting to know the products. We have done products on IPC products. We have done the products on naming rule. We have done products on PTZ. Now we're handling thermal products. Then a session from 11:45, we'll do recorders. That is the NVR, SI, VSS. Later we'll do HDCVI. So for temperature measurement, you can have such cases, and also with the integration of DSS, you can achieve high site surveillance with the thermal camera. So the basis of this training is just for you to know more about the thermal camera. For the case of certification purposes, just know about the thermal cameras, the various application scenarios, because we feel like if you know more of our products, it will be beneficial on your side where you can easily poach to clients and advise them on something that you already know exists and something that is working. So so apart from having just to monitor temperature or doing perimeter protection, these high-end thermal cameras can do deep AI functions like bot detection, whereby you have in cases where you have demilitarized zones, you can create alarms on objects like boats that are located. So key areas monitoring for illegal stopping, to prevent fishing in closed areas, water traffic management, such safety diving, etc. So another AI function that thermal camera can do is smoke detection. So you can do detection of smoke to prevent fires, and also to avoid in cases where you have storage spaces or warehouses. You can use thermal cameras, not necessarily only adding the sensors, but you can also include the thermal cameras on the site. So for performance on smoke detection at day, detection rate is 90%. So you can see for a distance, for a 7mm lens, the distance is 13 meters at day and night 13, or 3.5 millimeters. So the bigger the lens, the greater the detection distance. We're going to cover the naming rules for thermal cameras series design tool. So generally for thermal cameras, you'd have a TPC. This is the general, if you just see a camera with a TPC, that's a thermal camera. If you see one with a SD, that's a PTZ. If you see an IPC, that's an IP camera. So from the IP camera, it can be a bullet or a dome. If you see an EW, that's a fisheye. Then you have PSDW, that's a panoramic camera. So it's good to know the product naming rule, because for you to be able to easily identify objects and spending less time in knowing more of an object, of a product. So the naming rule will be TPC for thermal camera PT. So if you see a PT, that's a pan tilt. So for this case, like this camera, PT. Pan means it can go, the camera can move vertically. Tilt, it can move horizontally. So like this one is a form of PTZ, but not a PTZ. So it has a pan and a tilt. So it can move up. So it can move up or like this. So it's either it can move this way, or this way. So that's the meaning of pan and tilt. So if you see a PT is a pan and tilt. If you see a SD is a speed dome. If you see a BF, a bullet. So positioning. So we have 2, 5, and 8. So last time when we were talking about the various series for cameras like Entry, Light, Pro, WeSense, and WizMid. So we realized that the higher the number from this case, the better the AI functionalities, and also the cost. The cost also increases with the positioning. So resolution. So whereas we had a pixels, number of pixels or megapixels for the IPC, for thermal cameras we have resolution. So from 0 to 6. So for this case, this is just information that you can check by yourself, but it's not, the exam will not cover this deep on this case. So for the product family, for we have talked about this information. For border coastal control, you have this. For general monitoring, you have this. For fire prevention, for observation, So this one, maybe just to mention, this one is like a binoculars, yeah. But the binoculars, but a thermal version of it. I'll not dive more or off into this because, so unless you have a project or some quotation you need to do, then we can have, you can contact us, then we can do a dive more into this. But the exam will not dive more into this information here. So I think we will, okay, maybe just to mention something. So we a while ago we did a training on project on that was softwares. There was a software known as project design tool. I did not mention it, but it's a software that you can use to be able to check the cameras. So like for this case, we have one camera here. It will show you the various measuring distance, the installation height, so that you can do. It's like you're creating a logical installation of a physical site, so that when you're doing the physical installation, it will be easier, and you get to have accurate installation sites, installation information. Sorry. So you already covered this. So maybe you can check one successful case. In Sri Lanka, thermal hybrid PTZ bullet cameras for 24 hours perimeter protection. So they're using smart PSS to manage the whole system in a control center. So the perimeter protection will do vehicle unauthorized intrusion. So this is a case for airport scenario. For China power station. So you have this type of PTZ that will be used for transformer temperature monitoring. The model is a panel tilt, this high end. So number 8. Okay, so these are just successful cases we already talked about. Apart from this, Old Town of Lijiang. So okay, we're going to take a break. Then we'll come back and cover recorders. So recorders is very important. So we're going to cover information about NVRs, the IVSS, the EVS. So at 11:45, we're going to do the session on that. So we're going to do session on recorders. So meanwhile, we can have the small break. Then we resume at 11:45. So just to take a small break, then come back. So I'll end this session so that we can have it being saved. So I'm saving the sessions as 30 minutes, so for easier uploading to YouTube. So after I close it, you will just click the link, then we resume from 11:45.